I have to read this first bit. Well, not read it, but just sort of stay put for a bit, and then I'll be breaking out. Now, I am mic'd, so you should be able to get me at the back. Can you roughly see what's going to come on here? It's very simple stuff, but we have got a slide that will kind of support it. Is that okay for everyone? Yeah? So if I stand here and do it, that's probably the best, isn't it? When I need to do it, which is not quite yet. Okay. Right. Well, my next book will be my 30-year entrepreneurial journey. Listening to everybody here, and they're all in very varying stages of their adventure. And I suddenly thought, because I've just written a book about the work, which is called You Brand, and one of the things I wanted to do was to look at my journey of 30 years to where I am now with the business, and going through 3 major recessions. And we're still here. Okay, so first of all, I just wanted to say, I was watching Celebrity MasterChef the other night. I don't know if anybody else was. And I said to my husband, Mark, over there, we were in London, why is it we never get that kind of food in restaurants? It's so amazingly gorgeous to look at. And it's kind of bite-sized and really nice to look at, and it doesn't fill you up with huge amounts of food. And I said, we never do this. Anyway, so we come to Belfast, and a client of mine who is here and in Dublin, CEO, woman, fabulous woman, she said, I'm taking you out to dinner. So we went to Muddler's. And Muddler's apparently has just had a major fire at the same time as getting their first Michelin star. And we sat in there having that food. So I had to come all the way to Belfast to have it. Which was wonderful, yeah. So well done, Muddler's. Absolutely marvellous. And this is all about starting with first impressions. That's the title I was sort of given. And it all starts with first impressions. And it does, because I'm up here now, and your first impression of me, and how I feel about that, and how you feel about that, is the start of our relationship. And if it's in any way not clear, or it's not open, it's not warm, it's not interactive, we start to be a little discombobulated, don't we? Because we're not quite sure what to read into it. And that perception is where we all start. So my coming up here feeling quite usually nervous, obviously, because what I'm thinking about is what is my impression to you, and how are you feeling about me, which means we all have huge responsibility in how we first come over to people. And how we look, and how we sound, and consequently how people feel about us starts at that very cutting edge. That first impression. And the problem with first impressions is that the way we think we come over and the way people actually experience us can be wildly different. So in the work, we start with that understanding that we have to bridge that gap. Because we don't know, we're not terribly aware of how we come over. We're not really aware of how people feel about us. And as Chiara very nicely said, influence is about how people feel about themselves in your presence. Do we ever really think about that? Except in a way that says, oh God, do they like me? Am I approved of? Am I good enough? All those things. It's quite an introspective process. So we can't actually look at it like that. We have to be much more practical about how our first impressions actually work. So the competitive edge. What is the competitive edge? It's you. Every single you in the room is your competitive edge, or not. Every one of you is completely unique. There's no one else like you in the world. And why do we find that so uncomfortable a lot of the time? Because we don't think we measure up. We don't think we deserve a place at the table or at the meeting or anything else. We think, there must be someone better than me, or I'm better than everybody, which means you're probably not aware of anything. So actually having that really realistic understanding of how you come over and being able to work on it so that you feel free to be yourself. We look at that, and the work comes, as you probably have read there, from the theatre. Because great communication is what we have to do. Now, we're not asking you to be an actor, but did you know that 95% of the great actor uses themselves to inform the part? So what does that mean? What does that mean, do you think? That if we want to be great communicators, what have we got to do? We've got to use ourselves. That means opening ourselves up, being vulnerable, sharing who we are. And we saw some lovely stuff on the stage here, people sharing how they felt, where their problems were, where the challenges were. And I think we're now a nation of entrepreneurs, a lot of us, and we've all had to start in that place. I started in a very strange place, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute. Anyway, so, what is confidence? What is this thing that we all desperately want, and we're not quite sure how to get it very often? You heard having the idea, keeping on strategy with your idea, focusing on that USP that's entirely yours. You are the difference. Nobody's had the idea like you. So if we try and be someone else, or we try and do it in a way that we think will be approved of or accepted, we are not bringing that fantastic uniqueness to it. Your lens and how you look at the world is what's unique, and nobody's going to have the same one as you. So we have to honour it, we have to work at it, we have to keep it in focus all the time. Whenever everything else is going, another word, tits up, we have to stay with that place and that understanding. And it has to be authentic, it has to be genuine, it has to be congruent. Which means you always have to be seen as authentic, genuine and congruent. Which of course doesn't always happen because of how we feel. So let me just read this little thing out, which was, what does a confident person look like? Dr. Stacy Grossman Bloom, who's a New York neuroscientist. Have you ever seen someone easily trust their decisions, speak up without second-guessing themselves, and feel completely comfortable in their skin? It's magnetic. These leaders have something that many people want: confidence. We are drawn in as we turn to them when things seem to go haywire. They are visionaries and touchstones throughout change. But it's a quiet sort of confidence that isn't arrogant or boastful. So not Trump or Boris then. And that's interesting, isn't it? Because although we see the communication charisma a bit there, we don't entirely trust it, and it's not really stable, so we don't entirely believe in it, which of course is a bit of a problem. So what it is it's an expressive clarity. We see it, we feel it, we recognise it, and it is a comforting thing when we know someone's being confident and authentic and themselves. But of course, a lot of us feel comfortable in some places and not in others. We all have that. Because that's the thing that our feelings do. So I'm up here and I'm used to being on stage, obviously, but I had to learn to perform me, because before that I was performing a role. There was one removed. I didn't have to bring in all of me into it. Me up here is just me. And you have to recognise that as absolutely real. And I've practiced and practiced getting better at that. And as a coach, I do it with people all the time. If I sat down at the table and I was having a conversation with somebody, I might feel very differently, as other people do. They don't feel so comfortable up here. Sitting down one-to-one, they might feel much more comfortable. We all have different places. And depending on whether we're extrovert or introvert, we will have different locus of control and energy. which means we can be very easily misread, which is another whole story. So, what do we need that helps us stay ourselves and stay in a place that means we can be and seem confident everywhere? Not just when we feel in our comfortable place. Not when we're just unaware, so we're sitting as an extrovert around a table with 3 or 4 people. That's fine, that's our comfortable place. We need other energy, we need other people to give us energy. And then the extrovert stands up on the stage and goes, oh shit, there's nobody there. I haven't got any energy. I'm not being able to get it. What do I do? And the reverse for the introvert. The introvert, believe it or not, as they get more accomplished and more able, are much better big-time speakers. That's where actors come from. They're usually introverts. Think about it. They're on their own, they don't get interruption, they can organise it all, and they don't need people. Whereas the extrovert does. So it's all about where you get your energy from. But those are all different places. How do we always know how we can go into any situation and be confident anywhere? And in terms of having a competitive edge, that is absolutely vital for you all. You don't know, you are in different arenas all the time. You're always having to show up, stand up, speak out, and be you. And if you can't, or you disappear, or you go under, and you're not visible in a certain place, you miss huge opportunity. So that's what it's saying is basically, it's a lot to do with how we feel, isn't it? And how we manage those feelings, which are always there. But the difference is, once you understand how to perform yourself, you use that feeling or those feelings as fuel, because it's your petrol, it's in your tank, which we're going to have a look at in a minute. And that gives you the freedom to be yourself anyway, and know how to do it. So there is this thing, as I say, called a magic coat, which comes from the theatre. It's how we do our job, it's how we work it, it's how we project and make you really connect to the authenticity and the emotional connection of the character. What moves you? What makes you feel that you get something clear? Wow, I feel touched by that. It's a cathartic thing. You walk out of a theatre or a play and you've been touched by that emotion. So we need our emotion to inform and to connect and to engage people. And if we don't know how to use it, or we're a bit worried about using it in whatever situation you're in, you're losing a huge amount of your fuel. But you need to know how to use it. And that's basically the work that we do. So, it's being ourselves and staying ourselves in places where we are subjective to our feelings. How do we get those subjective feelings into a place where they literally are used, not repressed? So me. Okay, so this is a little bit about me and my entrepreneurial journey. So I've been doing television and films and theatre. I played a lot of the major Shakespeare roles. And I've just been playing Lady Macbeth. I'm not supposed to do that, otherwise that brings bad luck to the whole room. Anyway, and I've been all over the world, and I've been playing Lady Macbeth, and it was an amazing experience. And I suddenly came back after 27 years in the theatre and in television. And I've been famous. I've done all the famous television series. I've been in EastEnders, and I've been in Coronation Street, and I did a series called The Brothers, and I did Lotus Eaters, and I did films and all sorts of things. And I kind of had a go at everything and felt, yeah, I'm doing all right. And then when I came back from playing that part, I thought, why do I want to go on just being an actor for the sake of it? If I can't play that quality of part more than once a year, I'm not playing anymore. So I'm lying in the bath, having come back from this tour, and thinking, but lying in the bath, somebody mentioned about where do you have ideas? You have ideas when there's space in your head for them. So when you're not thinking about anything else, so I'm lying in the bath, I've got the candles on. I'd come to the end of a rather dysfunctional relationship with a rather dysfunctional actor. And I was divorced and I had 2 children, and I thought I've got to have something else in my life because I need the money. And I didn't really want to just go on playing boring parts. And I had the idea in the bath, literally. And they say you only need one really good idea. And that's the idea I had. How do I transfer all my learning, my understanding, the psychology, the science, the techniques that I learned as an actor to the non-actor? How do I help people find that confidence and be more able to perform themselves genuinely everywhere they go? Wouldn't that be interesting? And that was 30 years ago. And I developed a methodology over 4 years, it took me. I'd be walking around the garden with my little tape going, and then we get to that bit, and then that bit happens, and what then happens? Oh yes, that happens. And I'd be sitting with a client, maybe in the early days, going, I've got that far, that's fantastic. Now what the do I do now? I haven't worked it out, so I'd have to go away and work it out. And eventually I got to the methodology that we call U-brand, which is learning to, being confident anywhere by learning to perform yourself. So the U bit is about you, warts and all. It's about the unique person that you have. You have this amazing amount of stuff in there that is absolutely your competitive edge. All of you have it. So what gets in the way of you really having it, demonstrating it, using it, feel comfortable with it? Well, unawareness. You need to learn it. And we get in the way of our development because of our feelings and what we think people are thinking about us. We get in the way of it. And what's brilliant about entrepreneurs, and the ones I've been listening to and talking to Cara earlier on, is we're driven by this idea that we want to get across. We are driven and motivated by it. And it doesn't matter what happens around us, we are driven. I was driven totally for 7 years to get this right and get it out there. And I was in a terribly dysfunctional place a lot of the time initially. But that kept me going, that focus. I'm going to do this, this is going to work. I absolutely know it will. And it has. It's produced some